Hey guys, and welcome to part 4 of the LS swap build. So today I've just squared up the motor because it was sitting a little bit on the piss. So now it's completely straight. Not that you're going to really be able to see in the video anyway, but it was kind of visibly on a bit of an angle before. So now she's very straight. So to do that, what I did was just got a piece of alley bar here, put it up against the damper, and I measured from the damper to the rad support in several spots, but I did it in basically where the radiator mounts into, so I could get a pretty accurate measurement. And it was 10mm further back on the passenger side, so on this side here it was 10mm further back. And because I'm about to do the gearbox mount, obviously I want to get the engine straight before I start trying to make up a gearbox mount, because obviously then the whole assembly will be on an angle. So to do that, I basically just put one bolt in and then moved this side forward and then just drilled from the bottom up because it's an alley support. And then basically what's going to happen is I've decided I'm actually going to go rubber mounted. So to do that, what I'm going to do is actually make saddle mounts. So I'm going to take the standard LS cast mounts off the block and make saddle mounts. So that's why I've drilled the saddle mounts rather than the frame sort of mounting on the car. So I'll just put a marker where I want it, and he can make the saddle mounts to suit. So obviously it's not his fault, it's probably because this has done a fair few years of drifting, had a few bingles in the past, so it's probably just not straight. Plus it's pretty hard to do it on a jig to suit every car, because no one car is the same. Everything is bent. You'll know that when you've ever fitted an aftermarket exhaust or something, depending on what car they made the jig on, it'll never fit up quite right. Okay, so if we're going to go under the car, I'm just trying to clear out a bit of the aluminium so I don't get too much of it on me, but not having a win. So what I've done for the gearbox mount so far is just hacked up an SR mount, just so it can sit on there. This microphone's going to focus. So it's just sitting on that mount there. Now the SR mount, this one's actually off the driver's side, so what I need is one that offsets to the rear bolt hole. You can see the gearbox lines up pretty much square on with the rear bolt hole. So what I'm going to do is I've got an S15 or an R33 cross member, because that basically sits how I want it. So that should, fingers crossed anyway, fit up pretty much bang on. So now I'm going to test fit that and we'll see what happens. So on these Nissan mounts here, they're all labelled. There's A, B, C and maybe a D, I think. So this is a C mount, so it's got a little arrow so facing forward. You can see the passenger side's higher and the other ones come straight out for the different heights on the actual chassis. An SR one is basically like that, but obviously still dipped. So this is an R33 one, and then that's an SR one. You can see they're basically just mirror images of each other. So the SR one, this part hits the gearbox. I needed to come back and line up with the rear bolt holes, which is why I got this one. It sits 10mm further, the gearbox in the car, so this one should line up pretty much perfectly. I might have to overlap the holes. And I'm also going to use the S13 mount. So this is the gearbox mount, but it's 95mm centre to centre for the LS box. That's for T56 and auto boxes, they're all the same. So I've marked it out here, so I'm just going to pilot drill it and then drill it out again to 10mm. And then that should bolt to the gearbox, and then we can bolt it up and see how far we're at. I might have to overlap some holes or make up a few spacer blocks, but should fit more or less straight on. Fingers crossed. Alright, so that's slotted to the right size. So now we're going to mount this to the gearbox and then mount the crossmember. See what we see. Well, something I didn't really think about was the SR mount is a little bit too big. So I've spaced it down, but obviously still not enough, so I can make a spacer block. That's not really too much of an issue. Although I can use a VN gearbox mount. It looks pretty similar, but obviously just fit the gearbox. However, other than that, if I put it the right way, the alignment looks really, really good. So everything lines up pretty much bang on. So that's awesome. The gearbox is almost pretty much at its height. So if I get rid of this, if I space this down, I also have to put spacers here, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. So I'm going to try, go down the auto shop and have a look at a VN Commodore gearbox mount, and if it fits up to the subframe, to the crossmember relatively easily, then I might use that, because it looks about pretty much the same but just slimmer. So we'll go from there, but it's looking good so far. I'm pretty glad I can use all pretty much genuine parts. Means replacement in the future is going to be very easy. So wicked. Alrighty, so I've got the R33 crossmember in, missing one bolt, need to get another one. I've just got a piece of block in there to show that it all lines up with the correct mount. So I just have to get one of those VN mounts and fit it on, and then it all fits up bloody nicely. I'm absolutely wrapped with that. I couldn't believe it that the alignment fits perfectly and using an R33 crossmember. What are the odds? So as for the tail shaft, so the alignment there is going to be pretty good with the two-piece center bearings. So I was going to go a single-piece drive shaft, but after seeing that, I'm probably going to stick with the two-piece. So I'll get an SR drive shaft, and then I can just get the front modified. Just be a lot cheaper and a lot easier. So yeah, just get that VN gearbox mount, and then we'll be laughing. Okay, so as you saw in the last little snippet, the SR gearbox mount was too fat. Needs to be roughly that short. So I went down to my little auto store and just rummaged through all their gearbox mounts, and I found this one. So this one is out of a HQ Monaro. The one of a VL would have fit better. I wouldn't have had to drill it, but they didn't have that one, and this one works still fine. So it's about 45mm in height, so that works perfectly for what I need. The bolts, where it bolts the actual crossmember, are a little bit too small, so I need to oval them out just a smidge. And then the bolt holes on here are about 110mm, similar to the SR mount really, and so I need to oval them out to 95mm. So as for alignment, I put this in the car and mark the center line, which looks bang on in the center of those. So just going to oval out these holes, bolt it all together roughly, and then mount it in the car. Awesome. Okay, so the bracket fits, but the spacer is too thin, so the gearbox is too close to the car and it's hitting a little bit. So I'm just making these 5mm spacers, which will just slip in on either side of the crossmember and space the whole unit down a little bit. And once we've done that, should all be sweet. Okay, so the gearbox mount is in. Alright, so this is the mount. So I had to make some 5mm space plates just to bring it down a little bit, because the back of the box was hitting the tunnel, and basically everything was hitting the tunnel. So with the 5mm blocks, the clearance is pretty minimal, but it's where I want it to be. So everything bolts up pretty good. So it's still hitting on the gearbox. Just up in there. So I might try to get a big long screwdriver and smack it. Otherwise I have to pull the motor out and just smack that little section, but it's clear everywhere else, just that section, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. I'm probably going to pull the box out anyway when I do the harness. Sorry, the whole engine. So it's not too much of an issue. I won't be doing it today. If I have to pull the motor out to fix it, just have to remember to hit it. Can't really go down any more because the engine to steering rack clearance is like nothing. It's about 4mm, maybe not even. So I can't come down any more because it's just going to get too close. Especially being slightly rubber mounted, there's going to be a little bit of movement and don't want to be hitting there. Other than that though, all my it's all nice and square, and it's sitting pretty level with the two-piece centre bearing. So next up would just be to measure up the drive shaft and get that made, so I can seal that sort of off, and I need to get some longer bolts for that as well. So that's pretty much wraps it up for the Gearbox crossmember. I'm pretty bloody stoked that I can use a R33 crossmember, and this is off the HQ Monaro, the mount, so all off the shelf parts. So if I ever have a stuffed mount or whatever, I can just buy another one, don't have to have these custom brackets, which is a pain in the ass. So yeah, that wraps it up for engine and gearbox mount, guys, and more to come. Stay tuned.